Welcome everyone to today's weekly web chat. I'm Darcy Bakkegaard, and I'm excited to share with you a teacher from Montana, Andrea, to talk about virtual resources. Thanks for joining us, Andrea.
Thanks for having me.
Is it snowing in Montana?
It actually is. Today is our first big snow, and so all the kids are bundled up in snow pants and snow boots and all that fun stuff.
It's just hovering here. There's flakes that you could count, or at least the last time I looked outside. So hopefully everyone is staying safe. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you teach? Where are you?
Okay, so I teach in a small community outside of Bozeman, Montana, in the town of Amsterdam. There's about 150 students here at our school, and I teach fourth grade. So we have one of every grade level here at Amsterdam. And I've been teaching fourth grade for 3 years now.
Okay, that will sound very familiar to a lot of North Dakota teachers, of having one section of each grade level. So that's pretty cool. And do your kids come from a fairly wide radius around your school?
No, not really. Within 10 miles. Actually,
okay.
It's a very small ag community, and a lot of kids that are going to this school, their parents went to this school and their grandparents went to this school, and so
that will also be familiar. Cool. That's really cool. So as a teacher in a small school, what prompted you to start using virtual resources and virtual connections in your classroom?
So we were really lucky to have the opportunity to work with PBS. Our PBS lady is Nikki Brandenburg, and
who people on the web chat have met a couple times.
Oh, good.
Because she's so awesome.
She was able to come to Amsterdam last year, and she was just kind of here as a floating resource, and we connected right away, and we started thinking about different ways that I could make technology more available to my students and in my classroom. And so one of the things we started doing was Mystery Skype, and that's kind of where we all started.
Fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of tech you have available at Amsterdam? Because that's very different from school to school in North Dakota. Some schools are one-to-one, and some at a smaller school like yours might only have 1 or 2 laptop carts that the whole school shares. So what is the situation for Wi-Fi and devices for you?
So last year was a little bit more challenging. I had 10 Chromebooks in my classroom to share amongst 24 students. And so
kind of a 2-to-1 almost. Almost a 2-to-1.
We have a tech lab that's available as long as the tech teacher isn't using it. So I definitely utilized that resource quite a bit last year. And then this year we were fortunate enough to use our end of the year funds on extra Chromebooks. And so the third grade teacher and we now share one cart that has enough Chromebooks for each of us to have one per student. And
that's great.
2 teachers sharing one cart, which is really nice. And it's been kind of a game changer this year for how much we can actually do in the classroom.
One of the things that I like as an observer about things like Mystery Skype and some of the other virtual resources we're going to share is that it really only takes one device.
Absolutely.
You're doing as a class, and so access to technology isn't a barrier because you can do this as a whole class integrated activity.
Right, and that was one of the best parts about starting with Mystery Skype, was because it did only take one Chromebook and facilitation. So it was really great.
All right, well, I'm going to share my slide deck here. Everyone who's done this, you know, this resource guide will be, a link to it will be in the video description box. And we have a couple basic goals today. We're really just going to talk about, for me as a teacher, and granted, I was high school English, the biggest thing for me, I've just been blown away by the volume of resources that are out there and things that I never would have even, it wouldn't have even dawned on me. So a lot of today's chat is just about like what's out there, and then to talk a little bit about how you brought Mystery Skype into the classroom a little bit, Andrea. Can you talk about like where did you start when you were thinking about bringing in a Mystery Skype or a virtual resource to your classroom?
I'm sure like most teachers, every year you're just thinking of ways to make it more meaningful to the students, the things that you're already teaching. and finding ways to engage with them. And so when Nikki and I sat down and we were looking at different things that I already teach, we had talked about using Mystery Skype. And so the year before, technology was basically, I wasn't really using the SAMR model. I was kind of just at the substitution stage where if we were going to write a document, we might type a document instead, but it wasn't really using technology to its fullest advantage. And so I wanted to move towards that place in technology where it was actually changing the way kids were learning and thinking. And so with the Mystery Skype idea, we were able to bring a fairly boring subject for students alive, and we got them engaged and being an active partner in the learning. So that's kind of where we started, and it's just been developing ever since.
That's a great tip. That another place to start. I always think whenever I think of anything with technology, I always think determine your learning objectives and figure out like what is it. And so for you, taking something that felt kind of boring, like there has to be a way to jazz this up a little bit. But I also like your suggestion, two things that I really like. One, teaching can get a little stressful and boring. Like if it's not interesting and exciting for us, it's not going to be interesting and exciting for the kids. So I like that you were just finding something like what is going to be interesting and exciting. But also a great tip that if you're looking at doing tech integration, thinking about the SAMR scale, and it's SAMR, it's like Bloom's taxonomy, but for technology. That if you're doing substitution, like Andrea said, taking a worksheet, but having it on technology, that's substitution. And sometimes I think there's a time for that. Like, right, kids need to learn how to use Microsoft Word. And like they need to learn how to use some technology. So substitution, I don't think is a bad thing. Just like the lowest level of Bloom's isn't bad. It's just that we want to be pushing kids up to those higher order skills.
Right.
Well, let's dive in. I thought about the virtual connections and I was thinking about why people would use, and you just nailed quite a few of them in terms of like the general little things that I was coming up with. How has using things like Mystery Skype increased student engagement for some of those boring standards?
Right. All of a sudden, my kids are so excited about reading maps. They're interested in finding out where places are. And to really keep them engaged, the Mystery Skype can almost be a game. And so if you have any competitive students, which most of us end up having in our classroom, the competitive aspect was really engaging too, where they were trying to figure out first where the other school might be located. And it's just made them excited about it. So we've done 3 so far since school started, and they're already chomping at the bit to get a few more scheduled. And so what I've really...
That's a great sign. If you have students who are like, we want more time reading maps.
Right.
That's a job well done of making something that certainly you've sparked their inquiry and inspired students to seek answers. You've made it a more authentic experience where instead of looking at a map for the sake of looking at a map, you've now given them a much greater purpose. Can you share, where have you already Skyped with this year?
We Skyped with a school in Alaska, a school in Rhode Island, and a school in Ohio.
And did your students get to see, I mean, like were the schools different when they were talking to those kids?
Absolutely. So probably the most different school was the school we Skyped with in Rhode Island. So it was a private Catholic school. And so there was a lot of differences. Space-wise, compared to Montana, their outdoor activities were a lot different. And the kids were most interested in the fact that they were wearing school uniforms. And so we were able to have a deeper conversation about different cultures and different expectations in different schools and different places, which was really great for them to have.
That's a really cool benefit. And Nikki, who you talked about, she has shared stories with me of doing Mystery Skype, that she's loved it because for her kids in a smaller rural school district, getting to Skype with kids. She shared a story of Skyping with a school in New York, and their playground was on the roof because, you know, they're right in town. And for those New York kids, they could not believe that this school in Montana had cows like next to the playground that people could see. So it's even though you're doing a mystery Skype that's connected to mapping standards and to these curriculum standards, it's also opening this door on other perspectives and other ways of life. It's like a virtual trip to get to go somewhere and experience something different that your average third grader in rural Montana, rural North Dakota just isn't going to experience.
Absolutely. And I think that's been one of the most exciting parts about it, is that the kids get to see that there's a culture beyond our little Amsterdam community. And so even though our biggest town is Bozeman and it's about 15 miles away, even Bozeman, the culture is so general, and
sure.
It gives them just a bigger idea of what the world beyond Montana is like. And I think that's been very eye-opening to most of them.
I think that's one of the greatest things. In addition, if you are thinking, I mean, we would never have the money to take our kids, to take a group of third graders to Rhode Island. Right. But maybe you do have the money to take them to Bozeman, but now you have to deal with a bus, with chaperones, with like all these other logistics that go into planning. And I've taken kids on weekend long theater visits, you know, for the high school. We've gone to Minneapolis and done 3-day trips. It is really exhausting. Yes. Of getting to have a piece of that in the classroom without the time, the expense, and all of the stress of an actual field trip is pretty.
Right. So we've actually used the Skype function too to connect with national parks and park rangers. And so we've been able to take some of those virtual trips beyond just meeting other students, but bringing other aspects of learning too through through Skype, not just Mystery Skype. And those experiences were also really beneficial to the kids, because we wouldn't be able to take a faraway trip, but we can talk and communicate and have information given to us from people that are outside of our grasp, which has been another game changer for our classroom.
That's really cool. I would love if you have a contact for how to do, who you reach out to at the parks. I would love to add that to the slide deck. I have a few lists that I was able to find. You talked about outside experts. Again, this is one of the things that I was like, I had no idea that this was even possible. But there are lists, websites that have lists of scientists who are willing to do Skype chats, authors who are willing to do chats. And then I also just think, what if as a school you created a little database of who has parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles who would be able to Skype in for different topics and actually bring an expert. It's a lot of pressure on a teacher to have to know everything about everything. So what a gift to be able, if you're talking about microorganisms, why not Skype even with a microbiology student at the University of Montana and have someone come in as an expert? And that's really cool that you did the national parks. I don't have that one on here. So that's a great resource.
I think it does. And I think it works for all grade levels across all subject areas, because there is a ton of resources available. I know that our librarian just took our 5th grade class on a field trip to one of the big museums in New York. I'm not quite sure which one, but so museums are also offering the Skype option for classes and schools that wouldn't be able to visit in person.
And there are some museums, I was trying to find it. I apologize for flicking through my little thing. There are some museums that have online virtual reality tours. Right. And so in this packet, a little bit further down, there are some of those. But that's a great tip. I've heard that from several other teachers that
Mhm.
a lot of these museums across the United States, you certainly have to plan ahead. You,
Right.
you have to have you have to give them time to respond. You have to build it in so that you can adjust your lessons and things like that. But a lot
Absolutely.
of these museums are willing to do a virtual tour and Skype with you and take you around and talk to you about the museum. So again, yeah, you can't take your kids to the Science Museum in Minneapolis. You might not be able to take them to the Holocaust Museum,
Right.
but it's likely that someone at that museum would be happy to Skype with you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
In this deck, I have a couple of resources. Nikki helped me put this together. I shouldn't say Nikki and I, this was mostly Nikki, but she and I presented a little bit last year. And you were just talking about the mystery geography and adding that element of contest and having to figure out using different geography talk,
Right.
cardinal directions, looking at rivers, looking at different time zones, introducing different key phrases.
Mm-hmm.
And she shared the idea of doing a mystery number. I think it could be cool too as teachers plan ahead, like if there's something else that you're studying, and so as a class you're Thomas Jefferson, and so you've researched things about Thomas Jefferson, and then you Skype with a class that's Alexander Hamilton or something less boring than the two people that I came up with. But I think there are lots of options. Really, the sky's the limit of think of something that you're interested in. How
Right.
did you find the classes to Skype?
So last year, Nikki did all the legwork for me, and she set up all the dates, and she had teachers that she had used before when she was in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, how I ended up doing it was I just got onto Facebook, and there are mystery Skype pages and groups, and there's a lot of them. So I would choose one and
Sure.
join that, post when you would like to do a mystery Skype, or if you're looking for a school in a certain area. And within minutes, I must have had 10 or 11 responses. And since I get maybe 2 a day from other schools asking when we're available or if we'd be willing to participate with them. And so there's an unlimited number of schools and teachers who want to connect. And Facebook was really, really easy.
That's great. I'll look some of those up because I have the Twitter hashtags on there. But if you're not on Twitter, that Facebook option is a great one. And we're calling this mystery Skype, but you can use whatever you want. You could use Google Hangouts if you have a Zoom account. Zoom is what we're using for this conversation. You could use anything, any platform that allows you to connect virtually as we're doing right now.
And last year we used Zoom for our connections, and this year we've been using Skype, and the same. It wouldn't matter which platform you chose to use.
What other tips? What are some things that you have done? Again, this is a list of tips for success per Nikki that she came up with, but a lot of these are just like things to keep in mind. What were your big lessons learned as you've done this a few times?
One of the biggest things was creating roles for the students. So when one student's asking a question, that leaves 16 or 17 other bodies unattended or without something to do. And so I created roles for each of them, and I put them into teams. So not only are we working as a class to try to figure out where the other school is, as a class, they're working in teams to be the first team to figure it out.
That's a good strategy.
So we had different roles, like one person has the computer for Google questions, or if we get asked a question that they might not know the answer to, so they're the researcher. One person is in charge of the map, so marking off the map and being the map doctor or the map genius. And then the third person, their role is to keep track of all the questions that have been asked so that we don't ask repeat questions to the school that we're Skyping with. And making sure that everyone has a role has kept them all busy and engaged in the entire project. So from the time we get on the computer to the time we're finished, everyone has something to do.
And that really just helps make sure that we're upping that ante of inquiry for every single kid. Like if they have that specific task, and then it's pretty easy, they can stay in that team for a little while and then just rotate roles. So every kid has to be the Rhodes Scholar that's working with the map, and every kid has to be the research guru and the question counter. And that's a really nice way. I loved Nikki's tip, schedule time for the kids to make faces in front of the camera.
Yes, so we practiced a lot of that. And then in my class, we talked about being professional. So we want to be very professional when we're on camera. And so they get their silly out before we get on. And then the entire Skype, we have the word professional written across the board. And
I like that.
It's a very visual reminder to them. And so they've done a great job.
But what a great conversation too, of like, sometimes it's okay to be silly and to be like certain ways, but as human beings, there are certain situations that require us to be a certain way. And so when we're doing this, we're going to go into professional mode. I like that. That's just it also adds a layer of it. Again, it ups the ante of it's a competition. We're being professional. This is very serious. All of the things that you're doing just help make it even that much of a bigger deal for the kids as they're going through the Skype.
And they're very excited about it. And we reflect at the end of each Skype, so each session, what went well, what could we do differently, how were we professional, what can we do to be more professional. And so even throughout the first 3 Skypes that we've done this year, the kids have started thinking about ways to make it better and more engaging for them. So at the end of our first Skype, they decided to make a Did You Know book about Montana. And so they all got on and we made a digital slideshow, and they each have a slide that says, Did you know? And they each researched something different about Montana because they didn't feel like they were well prepared to share facts about where we live at the end of the Skype. And so then it turned into something totally different, a research project. They were collaborating on slides. We were making a book.
This shows a little bit of how dorky I am. I literally have goosebumps right now from you sharing that story of like how powerful that these kids went, we need to buckle down. We need to know more. And that gave them, again, you talk about that authentic learning that you talked about before, and you talk about that inquiry spark. What could be more authentic than a group of 3rd graders going, we don't know enough. Like, can we have more time to research Montana history so that we're more more prepared for our mystery Skypes? Like, that has to feel good.
It was amazing. Then they thought of it and we did it and we got it done. And so we're going to try to get it published so that they have a hard copy too. But we've decided that we're just going to share our slideshow with each school that we Skype with. But at the end of each Skype, they sit down and they get to share things about their location with the other school questions that might not have come up in the original Skype, and the facts that they each found interesting. I might never have asked them to do research on. I found out that some students were interested in the mining history, and some students were interested in the national parks we have, and just a wide range of topics that I could never have come up with without.
I mean, it's almost like you're integrating. It's almost like you're integrating kind of a mini genius hour into what the kids are doing. Like, that's just really awesome. I have a bad habit of like getting really fired up about things and getting ideas. So I'll just share this mini thing. A couple weeks ago, I was talking to another teacher who's trying to do some pen pal work across the state of North Dakota with another city. And we were just brainstorming ways to share things. And I said, you should have your students take a picture of one of their favorite things about where they live. And then, so like even in your slide deck where it has the things to know, so like you have like the very fact base. I'm the English teacher, and the person I was talking to was an English teacher. So we were spitballing English ideas take a picture of something that is very dear to you in where you live. And maybe even part of it is you write a little poem or you write a little haiku that explains what that thing is and why it's important. And then we were also saying it would be interesting if you then sent to this other pen pal school, just send them the picture, and a kid at that school had to write a poem about that picture. And then you compare the kid who found the picture and their poem to the person who's just seeing this object for the first time. I guess the point is, to this slide that's up now, don't stop the learning at the Skype conversation. Have kind of a next step. What are you going to do? But I love your suggestion, Andrea, of just ask the kids. What do they want to do? How are they going to continue this learning? When they've talked about Rhode Island, what else do they want to know? Like, what else? What are their next steps?
Right. And I think that helps them hold on to that information. So it's not fleeting. It's not, we Skyped with Rhode Island today, what's next? They're able to draw upon that information and use it again. And I'm seeing that happen in the classroom every day.
Yeah, and so I love that you're allowing the kids to be in the driver's seat of kind of helping shape where this geography quest kind of goes and where it takes them. And you talked about that your goal was to make something that was kind of boring more fun. I feel guilty saying boring, but I'm just right. But it sounds like you've knocked it out of the park. Of if the kids are asking to spend more time learning about this history, if the kids are asking to be able to do geography more often so they can look up facts and practice all of these things, that's really awesome.
I agree completely.
In here, Nikki shared these. I have not used either of these, of the Pen Pal schools or the Design Squad Global. And another one that is brand new, and again, I'm just dabbling in it, is the Flipgrid Pals. There are a lot of different places that help you connect to other schools. So these are just some other ideas. If you don't feel, if you're a teacher in a different grade level and you don't feel the mystery Skype just really works. I loved having a pen pal when I was little. I don't see any, I think that's a great option. I think having the kids interact in any way is helpful.
I did use Pen Pal schools last year, and it was another really fun and exciting opportunity for them. The kids were matched and it's project based. And so the teacher gets to choose the project, and then you get matched with other schools and kids at similar ability levels. And so it wouldn't be likely that if you're a 4th grade teacher that you would get paired with somebody in 9th or 10th grade. It's more likely you'd get paired with a school that had similar aged students to you. And so that kind of takes that worry out of it. And then the projects were totally age appropriate, and we had our pen pals were mostly from Turkey, and so again we got to have another great conversation about where is Turkey, how do you think, or why do you think
where they were from? I lived in Turkey for a couple of years, and so that's really Turkey is near and dear to me.
Nice.
That's really cool.
It was fun. So if anybody's interested,
how much time did that take? If you think about the Pen Pal schools, how much time did you have to budget?
I dedicated about 45 minutes a week.
Okay.
Because the projects roll out piece by piece. And I think that they do that so that different time zones can collaborate on the same subject or the same topic. And so once a week, every week at the same time, we would go and take care of that part of the project for the week. And it was really fun.
That's not a bad commitment. 45 minutes. The kids are doing an inquiry project. Like you said, it's a project-based learning opportunity. So they're exploring something. When did you have to start? Is there a hard, everyone must be enrolled by date?
So they have ongoing dates. So if you actually go to Pen Pal schools, I haven't been onto it this year, but once you join a project, once you find a project that you like, it has different startup days, and so you
Okay.
have to just meet their requirements. And they repeat the projects all the time. You just have to find one that works for the time frame you're looking for.
That's great. So if someone was looking now, they wouldn't just be out of luck because everything started in October.
No.
They could go in and find something maybe that starts in January when we come back after Christmas and you want to start something, or at another time going through.
Right.
In addition, I don't know if you've done anything with virtual reality resources. Is this something that you've dabbled in at all in your classroom?
I actually tried. I didn't get a lot of response.
Okay.
Our librarian, we have, between the two of us, we have, I think, 3 sets of Google Cardboard. And so she uses it in library quite a bit in tech. And the kids love it. She's taken them to different national parks and different places that they might not go.
That's very cool. So there are a couple things there are a lot of lessons that you can use Google Earth. So a couple of these things that I'm sharing you don't need VR goggles or glasses to do, but there's this very cool Out of Eden walk that it's a journalist walked, and everywhere he walked across these continents, he tracked. And so he joined this journey as walking the globe in the footsteps. And then you can go through and you can watch where he's at. And at each stop, learn about these different cultures and these different places as he's going along this walk. So a way to just kind of track kids through the earth. And then there are quite a few different ideas on using Google Earth. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be a PBS little stop if we didn't at least mention some PBS resources. But here in North Dakota and in Montana, this World Explorers is a pretty cool collection because, again, it matches Google Earth images with different explorers, including Lewis and Clark. And so, at least in North Dakota history, we do spend a fair amount of time looking at some of the Lewis and Clark adventures. So there are a couple different resources here that will take you through and connect to some map reading and some virtual connections. And I loved this. You can go on Google Lit Trips to find, explore different books around the world as a connection. And then this is simple, but this is something that I think, for me as a kid, again, we were talking about that being able to go and see something that you don't normally get to see. Mm-hmm. And I love, so it's shot with a 360 camera, so you can control what you look at as you scroll through and you check out this location. So there is a a National Geographic narrator dude telling me some stuff on this video, but I can also, check out the lions and their fresh kill and some things. And they have quite a few different, National Geographic has quite a few different videos. They're all just on YouTube. And so again, a nice little start to a unit if you're going somewhere, if you're studying a certain group of animals. The BBC has their collection of 360 videos. So again, the topics are pretty varied. So there might not be anything that's of interest, but back to Andrea, your point of what are the kids interested in?
Right.
Who knows, something that I would have no idea a kid would find interesting. They might go, oh, this is really what I want to see. But how cool to watch kids get to school in the Himalayas.
Right.
They're just some interesting, again, so just taking your kids to different parts of the world and they get that full 360 experience. And those are all just free videos. And then I have a few additional videos here that connect to same kind of thing of just some ideas, some things to get you started. Nothing on these, you wouldn't need a VR viewer to watch them. This, as a high school teacher, you can go, there are several colleges that have virtual tours that you can go and visit different campuses through this UVisit. So if you have students who, again, want to check out a university in a different area, like, I think this is a nice way for them to get a little, a little tour of some of these different universities that they might not be able to just go to for things. This is that Parks Explorer app. I would bet that that's the one that your librarian uses. And these apps are better with Google Cardboard. Like, these, you want a viewer, otherwise you're gonna have two separate images and it's gonna look weird.
Right.
I find the videos unnerving because I feel very unstable and I feel weird when I watch them in the viewers because it's too real. Like, it feels too real for me.
Right.
But I don't play a lot of video games, so my brain isn't used to that.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, this is just a basic starter kit of just some different ideas of how you can take kids different places and bring different experts to your classroom for free.
Right. And my biggest tip would be choose one. Start with one thing and let it grow from there. I think a lot of times teachers feel overwhelmed thinking about one more thing, but instead of thinking of that, I think of how can I make that one thing I'm already doing even better, and choose one and start there.
That's great. That's perfectly said. And I don't have anything else to add to that. It sounds like this has been a huge success for you and your students, and what a gift that you're giving them, not just in the fact that you're helping them see other parts of the world, but that you're really making learning relevant and meaningful and exciting. And that's what we want, right? We want kids to come to school every day going, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Instead of going, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And you're creating a lovely posse of kids who are excited about the doing.
Right. And it's been exciting as a teacher to watch the change in them.
That's great. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me today, Andrea, and for all of your great tips and advice. I hope that we have teachers across North Dakota who are hopping on, and maybe someone will be connecting with you to do their first mystery Skype.
I'd be excited.
All right. Thanks so much for your time. It was great to finally meet you in person, so to speak.
Right.
Until next time, enjoy and have a great week.
You as well. Bye.
Bye.